Okay, so we're continuing this thing. Do you have? Did you circulate those sheets that you sent me?
Yes, I put them on the chat.
Okay? And you also have the sheet from last week because we're going to need to continue that. That okay. So here's something. What we there's noise there. Okay. What we've learned so far, going through, we started off by trying to understand what is the importance of rain. That it seems to be that the headquarters of describing tefillah in Chumash is the story of rain, where the pasuk says, "The Elohim tir Hashem Elokim ki adam ayin lavodas adama," and Rashi there says, "He waited for Adam shemakir b'tevasan shekshamim umispalel aleim." Implication being that God would not let the bring the rain down in order for the vegetation to grow. If there wasn't a Homo sapien, an Adam would be makir b'tevasan shekshamim, he would understand the importance of what rain is, and then he would pray for them. This is the first makom of tefillah that we found b'chlal in the Chumash. Used to be a big yisod. This teich the Chazal Taka say that when it says Elohim to Hashem Elokim, it's a shem kafel. It's called Yudke Vavke and Elokim. So he said the Chazal say Gadol Yom Kshamim Ki Yom Shenitna B'Torah, that the day that rain comes down is like Yom Shenitna B'Torah, or the Chazal also say it's also found the Yalkut Shemoni there on the spot in Bereshis Gadol Yom Shamim Ki Yom Shenivru Shemayim V'Aretz. Seems to be a very important thing, this idea of rain. One wants to understand what it is, to the extent that this is the headquarters of tefillah. And it's from here we learn that tefillah means makir b'toivason u'mevakesh aleim. Now, what does this mean? This is what we pointed out last week. We saw clearly that the tefillah demands for you to understand what you're asking for. That's called makir toivason shel kshamim. We elaborate in Mishnah Saramban, based also on the Ramchal, that when we look at reality, we have to look at it as an inverted tree, if I may say. You know, usually in a tree, what you see is the trunk, and you see the branches, the leaves, and the fruit. What you don't see is the root reality. The root reality is stuck somewhere deep in the ground. That's what you don't see. The roots are very, very whatever they are, but you never get used to seeing them. It's only when you learn Lo Yachpor, you start thinking about roots. So if you ever learn Boabatsu Lo Yachpor, otherwise who thinks about the roots? Okay? Well, you have to look at reality here as an inverted tree. What you have here is the branches, the outcome, but the roots lie at higher echelons of reality. What you call, as the Ramban describes, a kos of yagid b'tachtoinim v'yirmos la'elyonim. That's what we learned last week by Archava. Different Rambans would say this, that whenever there's anything in this world, it doesn't start with here. Whatever changes here, whatever you're asking God to do here, it's really to change things in their core reality. Okay, and the core reality, when they're changed there, they ultimately develop themselves and come to expression in the reality that we experience. That's why I call it like an inverted tree. It's the roots are up there, and as opposed to regular trees, the roots are down there, and you're looking at the upside. There's the opposite. We're at the bottom of the list, bottom of the chain. The roots are, so to speak, up there. Let me explain this a bit more conceptually to understand. When a person has an idea, okay, and that idea develops finally until it gets form, etc., and he builds a house. Now, the idea which preceded the house is much more complex than the house. The making of the house is nothing more than an expression of the idea. That same idea could also be translated in many other things. If you want to change something, the change has to first come from a change in the idea and the perception of what he wants. Okay, you have a plan. First, you change what the plan is, and then you realize that's how you change. The change realized itself in the building bricks. But any change of any Seder Olam has to start with the plan of Seder Olam. That's a chayrei davar pashut. Okay, God works with a plan. He's a bit yekish, if I may say. You know, everything's very masudar and orderly. And Mamela, so anything has it change is going to be changing in the Havana, the basic Hanachas, how it starts. God wants to have that water should work a certain way. The laws of gravity should be in a certain way. That I don't know what, the laws of astronomy in a certain way. You want things to change, even for one time, what you're changing is in the primary plan stage in the beginning. You're saying that when the Jews leave Egypt, we're going to have to a Kriyas Yamsuf, we're going to be changing the laws of nature, which God originally put into position, which because of the reasons of the laws of nature, which because of that, water does not split. And all of a sudden, water is going to split. That's changing things in the core reality of where things really started, and the change you perceive is not just, you don't see the change in core reality because you don't live in that core reality. But the change that you see is the level of reality that you hear. I'll give you another small example. For example, we whatever food or drink you have, you more than realize that the food and the drink, whatever they are, there's a core reality there called chemistry. There's a core reality called chemistry. And if you want to engineer the food to change it, you don't take the matter there and change it the way it is. You change it in the chemical background. You engineer the food at the level of a science, and then you'll have another type of an apple. You don't take an apple and stretch it to make it bigger. You find out what the seed of the apple is and the laws which govern the thing of the apple, and you change it in core reality, then the apple will look differently. You want to have blue apples, you don't just inject dye into an apple, you change whatever the reason of colors are in the beginning, whatever apples are, you change it in its core reality, and then a blue apple will grow. Any real change lies in the core reality. The same thing applies when you learn the sugya, for goodness sakes. Okay, you don't just, you have to look, what is the core of this ruling, find out what its intelligence is, what the thought is, and then you modify or reformulate the idea, and then you'll have another halacha. Any true changes always lie in their core reality. One has to get used to understand that. Now, the pshat is like this, it comes out, now the Ramban elaborated over there, the even tachia oritz deshe. So the Ramban said, it doesn't mean the oritz here, it means ha'oretz ha'elyoina, the core reality of oretz, the mazel of oretz, call it what you want, whatever oretz is in the beginning, in the infinite existence of God, and where in the beginning of his reaction with reality, it is there that oretz ha'elyoina, as the Ramban says it, is the source which ultimately expresses itself in the oretz ha'tachtoina. And if you want the Eretz to give Desha, you first have to give a Koyach Tzmicha, as he calls it, an Eretz El Yaina. And then ultimately, this Koyach Tzmicha will express itself also in Eretz Tachtoina. Another example one would give is, you ever read you ever see the throne room of a Kodesh Baruch Hu? We've got an eagle there, and a lion there, and a cow there. It looks like his old McDonald with a farm. Like, what does that mean? You really think God has nothing to do with have a cow there in his throne room? It's pretty, you've been to Kibbutz Yavna. Not the most pleasant thing to have a cow in your room. You guys can barely stand the chickens. Okay? So it doesn't mean, it means shor shebemerkava. Shor shebemerkava, shor in his shirish, his midas agvura, without going into it, yoda shor konei v'chamorei buzba alav. That's the midas agvura v'achnoah, of a constriction, and Shorsh b'merkava is expressed, and that's the mashal of Gvura, and ultimately that is the shirish of the little dumb ox that you see in the kibbutz. In other words, whatever the shtalshulus of these energies and these hanhagas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Elyonim come down to be in the world that you see it today. That's why the pasuk says that Chana said, "Ein sur kelokeinu." And Chazal say, "Ein sur kelokenu" means "Ein tzayor kelokenu." There's no artist like God, because what God is doing is making a world which is kulei mishalim, little miniatures of greater things in their core reality. We do not live now. Is that core reality? Where is that core reality? We call it up there, but it's a joke. There's no up and down here. I would say it's in a different perception of reality, because what does the word world mean? World is an experience that you experience, any experience that you have through your senses, that's your world. Should you have had different senses, you would have experienced the world differently. You would have been in another world. if you had eyes which could experience, if you had senses which would experience the chemistry, not just know, but experience the chemistry, believe me, you wouldn't be drinking Coca-Cola. And you wouldn't translate, you wouldn't give explanations to certain phenomena in this world which have nothing to do with their science. It's because you know of the science, but you don't experience the science. You don't see it. You don't have an eye which takes science vividly, and therefore you live a life which is totally opposite of science. We eat things which are not good for our health. We wear things which are not, we do multiple things which are not good for our health. Because we don't look at things through the objective realities of their core reality. So we're oblivious to their core reality. Then we give them their own meaning, totally divorced from what they are. To take for an example, the core reality of everything is Chachma Sever Ritzoynei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bereshis Bara Lokim Zokta Unkelis and Tagim Yerushalmi B'Tagim Yerushalmi Bereshis B'Chachmasa. Ramban brings it down. He created with his chachma. Bereshis, Reshis, chachma. The beginnings of everything is chachma. Meaning to say that if I have to interact with you, first I have a certain perception of reality, which governs a certain interaction. And then my midos, my perception will be expressed in my midos, and I will interact with you that way. If I perceive you as a good person, I will interact with you that which is appropriate to acting with a good person. If I perceive you as a bad person, I will interact with you whatever is the best with that way. All interactions are products of perception. That perception, that primary perception is called Chachmas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When's the last time you walked in the street and you saw, wow, Ma Rabu Masech Hashem Kulam B'Chachmas Yisa Mala Ha'aretz Kinyanecha. If that would be not just Shogar L'Shon, but that's the way you would see things, then you'd also be living in a different world. We don't live in that world. We don't live in that world. We know of that world. We don't experience that world. So when we're talking about higher or lower, I would call it a profounder reality. I don't want to use the word high or low. It sounds spatial and therefore totally misleading. I mean, say you're experiencing something which is much more profounder. It's a truth which is here, but you may read about it at the best. Maybe you don't even understand it as good. Or today with our knowledge of chemistry and of physics, we should be able to understand the metaphysics so much better. Because we once you learn these chachmas, you realize that the tangible reality is not really what it is. It's nothing more than a certain laws of science which constrict energy in certain forms. That's what matter is. I mean, anybody learning knows that we're all looking for the primary matter, which ultimately is the source of all. Which, as I already pointed out, is a Ramban in Parshas Bereshis, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, that he said that there are two primary matters which have no form. One is called Shemaim, and one is called Oretz. And the Ramban says what God did for 6 days is he made forms in that primary matter. And everything in this world, whether it be your face, the book, the tree, the mouse, you all are the same matter, just in different forms. Okay, you, water, food, everything, we're all one matter. It's called Oretz. And then there's another matter for what we would call the conceptual world, what you would call the metaphysical world. That is another matter. Ideas are also a creation. They also come from a matter. So ideas, feelings, whatever, that's another matter. It's called Shamayim. This is what the Ramban writes in Perek Aleph, Bereshis Pasuk Aleph. So Judaism also believes they believe it's two matters, okay? But everything's nothing but the constrictions. If you would see things this way, you would live a different world. The example I always give is I always give this example, and I think it's a decent example. If hypothetically you only had the sense of sight and you didn't have the sense of touch, you could only see things. You couldn't smell and you couldn't touch. And you put a candle in front of a mirror, what would you say? Would you say there are two candles there, or would you say there is one candle and a reflection? Well, I'll answer the question, but you need to think. The only reason you differentiate between a candle and its reflection is because you have a sense of touch and a sense of smell. Your sense of sight would not tell you the difference. So ultimately, if you only have the sense of sight, you would say these are two candles. It's only because you have other tools to relate reality outside of the sense of sight. It's called the sense of smell. It's called the sense of touch. Therefore, Mamela, you have that your interaction with the world, with the tools that you have, create a language to describe your reaction with the world through the senses that you have. So your language is limited to the senses, how you internalize reality, and that's what you experience it. That's what we call your world. We talk of a profounder world, we talk about people who simply are more sensitive to reality, have internalized things, and they see things differently. They see things differently. I think I once told you when it says, the Maral says as follows. The Maral says in the Siva Avoda, Perik Vav, and it says, Tila David B'chol Yom, the Gemara says in Psachim, Arab Psachim, Tila David B'chol Yom, Muftach Leishu Ben Olam Abba. Why? Because it says that the pasuk Pesach Es Yodecha Umaspia L'chol Chai Rotzoi. I mean, goodness sake, if that's all you have to do, I'm in. What's the big? That's it. What does it mean? Okay, it's like come on. Do they really mean this? How do you understand that? I'm not really going to ask you how you understand it, because this could then end up in a comical session. I want to say that whenever you see these things, you should be putting up antennas and saying, hey, this makes no sense. And if it's religion makes no sense, so it better make sense, and go find out what it is. Don't be ashamed to say this makes no sense. Don't challenge it. Say the truth. It makes no sense to me. Equals I am senseless. Therefore, I must now develop a sense. Im reika hi bimchem. It's not empty because it's empty. It's empty because you don't have the tools of understanding. So go find it. But if you don't ask the question, you'll end up with nothing. I'm saying it the way it is, especially in your religious lives. You know, you're going to be going back to the great world out there. You'll leave this capsuled, plastic-covered incubator that you are in now, okay? And then you're actually going to end up where in college or in university, whatever you're going to be in the. There's a lot of stuff happening, and if you don't ask the questions now, you'll be in a problem. I don't expect any of you to stay, sheltered in in Stafford Hill over there, or in Brooklyn and Williamsburg. You know what I mean? You're going to be in a great world out there, okay? And if you plan to teach, definitely you have to be equipped. Hopefully one day you want to be a Chavra Sanhedrin, so you mamish have to know all Sifrei Minus and Avodah Zarah. So you better start knowing. I mean, whatever it is, Torah demands one has to be knowledgeable in order to understand, in order to deal with it. As you know, Rambam says means that Apikoros is goy, not Apikoros Jew. That Apikoros Jew you shouldn't be in dialogue with. That the Rambam and Pirsha Mishnah Vav. It's only an Apikoros goy. Getting back to this, Vosmentas, Zokta Marav. How do you read the pasuk? Pesach es yodecha. Who's the Pesach es yodecha? Pesach es yodecha. Who's the Pesach? Do you say about yourself? Pesach es yodecha, or do we say? Does it mean ata Pesach es yodecha? Is that not a silent ata there? Pesach es yodecha without the word ata sounds as X opens your hand. Umaspia, who? L'chol chai, he satiates all that lives. Rotzai. What does that mean? Does it mean ritzono? L'kol chai ritzonam? What's the translation of the pasuk? Does anybody want to volunteer? Stomach, you don't. The questions are simple. Do you really, you're supposed to be mechav in this pasuk? First, right? You're supposed to say it with kavanah. How can you say? You probably go ui pusech and you roll your eyes like backwards and forwards and you sound like frum. What are you saying exactly? I don't know. I just have to sound frum about it. Really, what are you saying? Pesach es yodecha. Now, are you saying ata pesach? So it's a silent ata. I'm guessing most of you think that way. Umaspia l'chol chai rotzain of what? You satiate them with their will. I don't know that. I didn't know that they get full with their will. You must be able to chachai oichel. You ever see Borchinavshi? Let's make rotzen. Food. Since when? I'd like to have three slices of rotzen, please. Was meint das? I'm just curious, does anybody here have a good, intelligent answer? I won't even ask what it is. I just want to know if you tell me that you have one. Davidl, no, Zugmarappers. Why is everybody, why are you closed up? Are you open up and Ben and Saul? Come on, what's this? Because you're high, I'm going to ask you. I'm asking you a serious question. What's the pshat in pasuk? You say it every day, stomach 3 times, right? I don't know. Stomach, you say it 3 times, right? You do mincha and you do say it twice in shachars. No, what does it mean? It doesn't mean. What does it mean? So I'll read the morale. Ay, Gott in Himmel. So the morale in the Siva Avoida in Perik Vav. He says, "Bevadai ein shaykh lemek yikna el babab shu peseches yodech masbil chay charotzen bilvat." There ain't no way you go in that St. Peter lets you into the pearly gates just because you said peseches yodech. That sounds like a discount. It's the wrong religion. Ki yesh chaim gashmi ve'ein chaim gashmi b'olam haba v'gam lo yikna elam haba b'shum ha'shohelech hashvach hazeh b'seder aleph beis. Why? Because it goes according to aleph beis. The Gemara says over there. Why? Maybe it's very important because the shvach according to aleph beis. All you should read the Gemara in Arba Pesachim. Anyway, what does he say? Lo yikna elam haba rak kasher davek b'chaim. Ve'ein davek b'chaim b'shvil sheyomah hashvach holech ba'aleph beis. So he says, "Mamesh yesh b'shvach as I said the aleph beis, v'yesh bo gam pesach yodech milchay ratzoin. Ki b'mesh omer pesach yodech milchay ratzoin hu davek b'chaim." I'll explain it shortly. Uma sheshvach holech ba'alfa beta magia ze ad chayei olam haba ki kaf beis oisius magim ad olam haba. So here he writes, "Havein ki kan ne'emar pesach es yodech u'maspil chochai." Ube mizmor, hoidu ksiv noisen lechem lechol basor. Yurtz pesach yodecha umasbil kochai. Yurtz says noisen lechem lechol basor. Ki alechem ve'abasor gashmim ve'ein haratzain gashmi. Halechem ve'abasor gashmim ve'ein haratzain gashmi. Ve'nomar b'mizmor hazeh pesach es yodecha v'hayu lo yilomer tiftach yodecha. Sharei yodecha u'lenoichach rak uremez al harotzain hanister v'havein zeh. No, what does he mean? He says this. He's basically saying what's pesach. It should say tiftach. Okay, tiftach es yodecha. So he says that harotzain hanister is the harotzain hanister is pesach es hayad. Understand what this means. What does this Maral mean? What do we see when we say Pesachas Yedechon Bilchach Harotzain? And how does this make us into a Ben Olam Haba? And the answer is because, as we know, the Gemara, the pasuk says, "Vayancha vayirvecha vayachilcha esaman." He starved you, and he inflicted pain upon you, and you ate the man. All this was for one reason only. People should know the that's what it was for. The Ramban elaborates on this in the Parshas Aman. One has to see this, but I'll say it. Bekitza, I will explain this now. It all starts with a Sifrin Shulchan Aruch. The Sifrin Shulchan Aruch is in Orach Chaim and Siman Vav, where there's the halacha of Birchas Hashayotzar. And we say there, Reifei Chobaso Mafli La'asois. What do these things mean? So the Beis Yosef writes, once again, this is indicative of his understanding of science. It's obviously not what you have to be mechaven today. Raifei chol basar al shema nikovim shebaraboy v'hoitzi pselis macholoi. Ki im yisapish v'betin yamusu v'yitzasei refuah. So first of all, one thing is simple. This is actually very simple. He's raifei chol basar because when you eat, you have toxic waste in your body. The capability of expelling that toxic waste, it's a refuah to the goof. That is actually quite sensible. 1 minute. This again, I don't know what happens here, how these things happen. 1 minute. Excuse me 1 minute. There we are. Okay, yeah. So first of all, expelling toxic waste from the group. So the Beis Yosef, that's called Raifei chol basar. Bas meint mafli lasos. And here he says, the body is like a wind bag, a bag full of air. If you make a little needle point in a balloon of air, the ruach will leave you. Man is full of holes. Somehow the air doesn't leave. Now, this is based on a very, very ancient understanding of science, which Chazal also understood. They thought that somehow man has some kind of he breathes his own air. He doesn't inhale and exhale. He breathes his own air. He has like an oxygen canister inside him. He's breathing his own air. That's why Chazal say on the pasuk, "Vayipach bi'apay nishmas vayipach." What do Chazal say? Man de nafach mitochiyuto nafach. He who exhales from himself, from his essential self. Now between you and me and the lamppost, when I exhale, I'm not expressing myself. I'm simply expelling the air which I had previously inhaled. When I exhale, I am not expressing my inner self. And yet this is used as an idea of saying that the neshama is the chelik of the kamimal. It comes mitochiyusoy upnimiyusoy. Read all the chazals on that, because they understood that man does not exhale that which he inhales. Rather, man exhales that with the air which is found in him. That was the Dibra Torah Koloshim Bnei Adam at that time. That's what the science they knew, and the Beis Yosef still thought that was true. Beis Yosef thought, man's body is so full of holes, and yet his oxygen doesn't leave him. Now, how is it possible? Okay, so obviously we understand that's not the pshat. Okay, it may have been the pshat understood according to the science at that time, but definitely is not the pshat the way we know it. What is it? What does it mean? The digestive system, which is really remarkable, that you can take they take that they derive from the food, from the nutrients which are needed for the body, and this is internalized in the body, and the rest is expelled as waste. That digestive system is an unbelievable, wonderful reality. It is. That's right for chabasha, the fact that the toxic waste is expelled, and mafli lasa is the fact that the food is through the different digestive system, how it is basically separated the nutrients which were kept, and the waste that goes further. And the body knows what nutrients to send to what organs, etc. It's a pillay ploim. It's a beautiful thing, and this is what we're talking about here. This is what the Beis Yosef says. So those are the kavana pshuta, raifei chol basar, that you expel toxic waste to mafli lasos, that we have the unbelievable digestive system which knows how to ferret out what goes where and what gets expelled. And then the Barama says something, the Farish, another interpretation is Shemafli La'asot, he does something wonderful, that he keeps the spirit. Here he's talking about not the wind, not the air, here he's talking about the neshama. V'kaisher davar ruchni b'davar gashmi. V'akol al yedei she'u roifei chol basar. Ki az ha'adam b'kav ha'briyos God does an unbelievable reality of making sure that through food, the neshama will stay contained in the guf equals. Without that, it will leave it. What does this mean? So the Magen Avram says this is misconstrued by many people. So I want to read the Magen Avram. So the Magen Avram in Siman Daled Uba Kavanas, she's quoting again Shara Kavanas. You can become used to the book after a while. Shara Kavanas of Shmuel Vital, which she edited Reb Chaim Vital's Kavanas, the Ksavim of the Ari. The neshama nenes miruchnius amachol, v'aguf nena migashmius amachol. The neshama enjoys the ruchnius amachol, and that's what keeps the neshama in the guf. And the guf, what keeps the guf alive, that's the gashmius amachol. So what is the chiddush of mafli lasos? That food is a reason not just to make sure that the body is healthy. Food is a reason for the soul to be nurtured to stay in the body. Now, what does that mean? Now, I'll explain in 2 minutes, but let's read the Gra. The Gra says the same thing. Zok the Gra. She mafli lasos, she mikasher ruchni bigashmi, zok the Gra, ayedei amazon. The pella is not that a neshama is in a body. That's how many people misconstrue this in a terrible way. They think the pshat and ramah is that the pella is that a davar ruchni can stay in the davar gashmi. They never don't learn the Magen Avram, don't learn gra. That's not the chiddush. The chiddush is not that a neshama is in a guf. The chiddush is that which keeps the neshama tied down to the guf is food, and that's a pella. A davar gashmi, so to speak, is the reason for the neshama to stay in the guf. Now, what does this really mean? So the emes is, 1 minute. Oh, there we are. The emes is, this is a very famous Zohar Kodesh. It's basically also it's a medrash, and the medrash says in Shoicher type in Tilim it says, and the pasuk bitchu boy b'chol eis. Am shifchu lefanav levavchem, and the medrash says in Shoicher type, that's medrash Tilim Perik Chosamach Beis, haneshama hazois kol sha'ah shehi oila v'yeredis baguf umevakeshes latzeis min ha'adam. The neshama constantly wants to leave the body. I'll explain in 2 minutes what that means. But then she realized there's so much covered Shemaim to see and understand here more than going back to its source. And therefore the Medrash ends, she comes back and stays. The Medrash is describing that there's 2 issues when we have. We obviously, if your body's to stay alive, you need a neshama tied to it. And for the body to be healthy, you need X amount of nutrients of the cells, and therefore you need food. That is simple. That's enough. That will nurture these mechanisms in the body, and therefore, if there's a soul there, it'll stay there. But there's another issue on the table, and that is the soul does not want to stay in the body. The body can be healthy as the soul wants out. Let's try to understand what that means. When we talk about a soul, it is commonly defined in different places and different disciplines as chelik elukah mimal, so to speak, a part of God of above. Now we realize that is a sentence which makes no sense. For God cannot be fragmented, therefore there's no such thing as a part of God. God is not, you can't put, he's got a big piece in the north and a small piece in the south. What do you mean a part of God? So we're not talking at the moment of his objective reality. This is not the place to understand. Let's understand what it is. The soul identifies itself as nothing more than an expression of God's wisdom. Part of God means, let's say, a part of you is your wisdom, granted. A part of you is your chachma. I would say the dominant part of you is your chachma, because it's through your chachma that you interact with the whole world around you. And you think, that's called your chachma. You feel because you perceive. Man in coma, which is no chachma there, believe me, nothing's happening. He may be physically alive, but basically the eye is dead, dormant, rather. So we talk about your chachma. We talk about your perception of things. Okay, how does the neshama perceive itself? It perceives itself as nothing more than an expression of the Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When's the last time you looked in a mirror and said, I am a creature which is created by God, an expression of his infinite will and wisdom? Promise you, you may say it and chuckle, but would you actually I don't even think you think that. But should you do it? Because the Tefillah says you have to. You say it in the Mizmor L'Soida every day. Hu asanu. He made us. We are his nation and his flock, not because he bought us, because he created us. He made me mi'ayin le'yesh, and thus I am his flock and I am his nation. You say that, isn't that what the Ramban writes at the end of Parshas Bo, that the ultimate goal of human thought is for a person to live with the recognition that akel baro, that he is a creature. You are a created form of God's will and wisdom. And that's what the Ramban writes at the end of Parshas Bo. Kitachlis kol ha-mitzvahs sheyeda adam shakel baro. You have to internalize the idea that you are a created form. That's what you are. Mufursh Ramban, the end of Parshas Bo, we've learned it more than once. So the neshama taka sees that way. You look in a mirror, you don't see that. The neshama sees itself that way. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the Ritzoni Yisborach, it's sent down to lower echelons of reality, where there now it's basically, it's like, can you imagine that Gulliver was thrown into the world of the pygmies, of the Lilliputs? It's like, what can I tell you? Like Aristotle becoming a kindergarten teacher. Like the Gra, like Reb Kiveger having to say a shir Aleph and Karen B'Yavne. Let me Michael saying shir Aleph and Chevron Yeshiva. It's the same thing. What is he, a babysitter? You're talking about, Reb Kiveger. He only talks to people that they have shas under their fingertips, and he has to explain how it works. Understand? Not the little boys that have to learn how to brush their teeth and blow their noses. Can you imagine what the neshama is doing? Is coming down here. It's basically, sometimes you wonder, it's like, you know what I mean? Like Dr. Livingston. You went to live between the savages. Now, what am I doing here? Here I am living in a perception of reality of ein oid milvada kipshutai, and that's the pashtus of my metzias. That's what chelik elokayim means. He perceives himself as nothing than a part, equals part, because he does live in a sense of distance between him and God. So he sees himself as an expression equals part of. I can say that your wisdom is part of your personality. And therefore, I can now say that if something which is created came because of my wisdom, it's broken off from your chachma. That's called chelik elokayim mimah. The chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one with him, as we learned many times in Rambam. The E and his chachma are one. I discussed that already in class quite a few times. The God's wisdom is an expression of the infinite self, and that wisdom is expressed in the creation of a soul. But he experiences that. And now he's coming down into a world, which, believe me, that is foreign language. And it's a world which he has to, which thinks a totally different language. I repeat, it's a profound philosopher, which just became, I don't know, a grease monkey in a garage in Shechem. I mean, what do you do? What's he gonna do here? And he wants out. And the neshama wants out. Because in the world of the neshama, the only thing which is meaningful is lisaneg al Hashem. To have the pleasure of understanding more and more of his identity and who is a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That which you ultimately pray for one day when you will be a ben olam haba. So why does the neshama stay? So the Chazal say in the Medrash Rabbah, the reason it stays is simply because it realizes that there's a perception of kavod shamayim, of God, that it will experience here, that it will never experience if it stays up there. I'll give you an example. You know, let's take an extreme example. It's easy to you have a child, you do a bris, or you light Hanukkah candles, it's easy. Anybody does that. But when you put you in a Nazi concentration camp, and you do what it takes to make Hanukkah candles, and you say then, believe me, you suddenly realize a connection to God that you would never have realized without that. You suddenly realize God is there that you would never have thought he would be there. You would have seen a sense of religiosity which you had never seen before. In terrible crises, when there is a degradation of human dignity, and if you find human dignity there, you found the depth of human dignity which cannot be seen in other situations. So sometimes you have to go very, very, very far to see how God is everywhere. And that's what the Midrash says, that when he comes and he realizes that Malay Chol Haaretz Kevaydai, the neshama stays here. He suddenly realized, yes, that Dr. Livingston is going to live over there somewhere in what's now called Zambia, or wherever it be. He's going to realize dimensions of humanity that he would not have realized if he'd been living in the happy London of Victorian times. He would understand dimensions of humanity, of compassion, whatever it only be. He was educated. He grew into a great person. The neshama realizes that sitting up there in the fat land of philosophy, he doesn't realize the depth of what does it mean, Malay Chol Haaretz Kevaydai, that God is infinite, until it goes down into the gutter and finds him there. Now, what does it mean? He finds God in the gutter. This is where we go now. So when you find God in the gutter, it means like this. You see, when you eat, what are you doing? You're taking the accumulated energies of diamond, of the minerals, which ultimately nurtured vegetation. As you all know, we're talking about a cyclical reality. Energies do not leave, they just become recycled and redimensioned and redefined. And the energies of diamond suddenly become tzomeach. Not suddenly, it's a chemical process. The energies of the diamond are translated into tzomeach, and ultimately, probably they end up in a chai. And then when that chai is naniach, is done, what's done al pi halacha, and you eat it, what happens is, what are you doing? You are taking the kaiches of the daiming, which translated into tzemeach, which translated into the chai. You're internalizing it into the medaber, and that with those kaiches, you are now doing Torah and mitzvah, standing up in front of God. You have redeemed the total history of that food from the beginning. Everything became meaningful because everything is a medium which leads to a direct connection to God through Torah and mitzvahs. It's that daimim and that tzomech and that chai which gave you the capability of putting on tefillin, because you could move, because you're alive. You suddenly realize it's unbelievable. In Shmei Shemayim, we don't realize that the Muslim, the Malay Chol Haaretz Kevaydai in daimim. How are you, Megala? What are you doing here? You are suddenly elevating, if I may say, every time you eat, if you eat like with a conscious reality, you think what you're doing, you are now giving meaning to the whole food chain. That's what you're doing. It's not just a cow, it's not just a bush, and it's not just a patch of grass and earth. All that became energies which now became you, which allows that energy now, as we said before, this is a things which, as we know, that energy does not just go anywhere, it gets recycled. And here you have it. Now that energy is the ultimate, those energies transformed into your energy, and that now becomes what? Limud Torah, Torah mitzvahs, which means v'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem chayim kulchem hayom, you're dovek b'ilana d'chayim. You've brought that all up face to face in front of God. You know what you've done? You've given meaning to the whole reality. Now, you must understand we're always that way. It's also true as far as history is concerned. It's also true as far as multitudes of things are concerned. the personality that you have is also it's shirish lies in the history that precedes you. You are who you are because there's so many different things that happened in history, which ended up you at the end. I think I once told you about this cartoon that a student of mine gave me. What's the difference? I want to repeat this again. What's the difference? I used to collect. I still collect. I had like the volumes of Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, so student of mine, he's a chosh for Rav today, So it used to be in my library. Now, getting older, so it's not in my library anymore. He said this big picture. He gave me this framed thing of Calvin and Hobbes, where you know who Calvin and Hobbes is, right? Do I have to explain? Does anybody not know who Calvin and Hobbes is? Raise your hand. Oh, Harris, you're English. Someone's got to explain Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin is this naughty, crazy, obnoxious kid, which is supposed to be a metaphor for all young children. It's a parenting manual. And Hobbes is his toy tiger that he talks to and his best friend. Remind me to give you a book to read. So here's the story, So Calvin says to Hobbes, I've been thinking. And Hobbes says, did it hurt? The line I always use. And he says, Calvin says, no, really, I've been thinking. What you been thinking? And then he goes on to say, the Chveis Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, the Chveis was this one killed that one did that, this head rolled, this head didn't roll. And all that leads to one thing. And Hobbes says, what? To me. See, all that funneled down into me. So Hobbes says to Calvin, so what you gonna do about it? The next box has him sitting with Hobbes in front of the idiot box, i.e. television, and watching a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Do you understand? It's go, wow, life, all of history led to me, and what do? I waste my time. But the first part is important. It is true. All of history leads to who you are, and you can redeem it and make it meaningful by living a meaningful life of Torah and mitzvahs. And that what you've done is taken all of the history before you and given it a meaning of a keshet HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's what the Ishmael calls la'amidam panim b'panim mula HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or you can do the opposite. So you realize how much lost history of chatoim, avonis, and pshoim, of Isecha v'avois of Isecha, biz dor mabel, ich weiß nicht wemen, dor midbar, that you can redeem because they're the reason of your being here. They're the daimim, tzamer, chai, and the medaber, which ultimately is you. You are elevating history. It's a memory of Rav Blachman, which discusses this. Time is also something which is something we can destroy by wasting it. He says that Yom Kippur is a day which we can capable of reviving and bringing back all the dead weight time of the year and giving it meaning again. And he describes the whole dynamic there. I'm not going to do it here. We always have to live in that reality. We are people of memory. The things of the past, we can bring them into the present through Avodas Hashem. Both history, both time. And here we're talking about food at the moment. Eating like a mensch. When we say that the shulchan is a mizbeach, what is the idea of a mizbeach? A mizbeach, as we know, is called lachmi the ishai. Korban tamid is called lechem elokeichem hu makriv. It's called lechem. Why is a korban called lechem? The Ibn Ezra says, "May this is not. I'm totally off the sheets. You realize that, so it doesn't matter. That's the way it works. You know what I mean? Well, Ibn Ezra says, what is lechem? Lechem does not mean bread. Lechem means any nutrients which come from vegetation, not basar. When we say lechem in the mikra, it means lechem means the food, the staple. That's what it means. I don't care if it's berry priya eitz or berry priya adama, as long as it's not that good old shakal near b'dvari of protein. That type of protein. Okay? That's what we're talking about. It's called lechem. That's in Ibn Ezra. You look at it in Vayikra on lechem elokeimu makriv over there. So the pshat is, why is the korban called lechem? And the answer is, once again, God also has to have a reason to constantly be Mechaya Es HaOlamus. God also has, he is the neshama to this world. There's got to be a reason for him to keep on doing this. What is the staple which nurtures him, which because of that he continues wanting to will this world to be? Now, what I'm telling you now is a rikanti. And the answer is very simple. It's the avodas ha'adam, karbanos. Man, without going into the kavanas of karbanos, I can only tell you that the Medrash Rabbah writes that since there's no tmidim, the substitute for tmidim is kabbalas ol malchus shemayim of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, morning and evening. Just want you to know, it's a Yalkut Shemani and Veschanon, that since there's no karbanos tamid anymore, so God substituted it with kabbalas ol malchus shemayim. So let's just at the moment understand, without explaining kavanas or karbanos, the korban tamid is a parallel to what? To kabbalas ol malchus shemayim. Avodas ha'adam, accepting HaKadosh Baruch Hu's malchus. And that's lechem elokeichem. That is the food, so to speak, which keeps the neshama of God into what's called this world. That's the staple. So the crowd is, when you eat, you're doing an unbelievable thing. The neshama is aware of a process that through this reality, he's redeeming unbelievable things. He's megala covered shemayim, which you wouldn't have thought about if you would have stayed up there in the heavens, so to speak. I told you, you have to live in the slums to understand human dignity once you find it. To live with good manners over there, upstairs, wherever it only be, that's easy. To find humanity in places that you wouldn't dream about. To say Shechiyanu on Hanukkah candles in your Novskill labor camp in Flashov, where you know that people are dying left and right, you don't know if you'll live a minute later. That's a totally different type of Shechiyanu v'kimonu v'giyonu zmanazad that you would have had if you would have lived nicely in your shtibel in Krakow. I suggest you read Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust by Dr. Yafa Elyach. That's Michael Rosenzweig's mother-in-law. She passed away recently. She recorded memoirs of of certain Hasidic people that went through the Holocaust. Specifically, the Bluzhever Rebbe. He was a brilliant man. Rav Hutner felt that he was the wisest man walking around. And you should read it just to understand the depths where people can find the Kadosh Baruch Hu in. I actually read that every Yom Kippur, every Tisha B'Av. It's called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust, Yafa Elyach. Kriyat Chovah, to understand a bit what it means, that covered shemayim can be found everywhere. So this is what nurtures the body, the soul. That's what keeps the soul tied down to the body. That's called the Ruchnius HaMeichel. The Ruchnius HaMeichel is the covered shemayim, which is Mechayim Ahava, the Daimim, which is ain't going anywhere. The Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make the Daimim ain't going anywhere. And you took the diamond after that Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Mechayis, the diamond became Tzemeach. And then you made that into a salad, and that you ate, and it became part of the medaber. And that was translated in the Torah mitzvah. So the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Mechayim Ma'ava, es Adaimim, and ultimately Tzemeach, became the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is now Mechayim, you. And with that chiyus that you now have, you're doing Torah mitzvahs, and you're being mal of the world, you're bringing all the world up to God. And what are you doing with that? You're Maida Kadosh Baruch Hu Shakel Boroi, and that's the Takas Avodas Hashem. So food is a mizbeach. It's lechem. When you eat, it's a mizbeach. You're being mala the past, upanim mula Kadosh Baruch Hu. You're being mala the history of the food chain. That's what a person eats like. Zohar Kodesh describes that there's different types of macholim. We're not going to talk about that here. But he says in truth, Anshe HaChochma, they don't need that. Their lechem lies in their Havana and Asaga alone. The Havana of Asaga alone of the Anshe Hadas is the lechem which keeps the neshama tied to the guf. It's a Zayim Taf Samach Beis B'Shalach. In fact, the Zayir, the Kash, if that's the case, why are Talmidei Chachamim very weak? You're telling me a Chochma Techaya Ba'aleha. So why are Talmidei Chachamim very weak? Torah Mateshes Keicha Shel Adam. Dr. Zayir, it's very nice. The Chochma that you've attained is the reason for the neshama to stay in the guf. But the guf doesn't get food from that. The guf needs, carbohydrates and proteins. So what he's saying is that as far as the Talmud Chacham is concerned, he doesn't need the ruchnius of the Michael to keep the neshama in the guf. He can do the same thing with Havana and Asaga. He doesn't have to experience food because he can understand it. The person which doesn't live in Havana Vasaga, so he has to redeem this through his experiences. Then he'll do tefillin, he'll do other good things. But if you're capable of understanding the reality without the food, that is also a reason for keeping you in the neshama wants to stay in this world. And that's what the pasuk says, "Chochma techayes ba'aleha." Your chochma is what gives you chayus. The kesher of your neshama and your guf is lav dafke because of your food, because you understand what this is all about. You're des ribainai, and you know that you're a nivra, and you realize makers meidish akel boray umaydalay al kach. I'm saying again the quotation of the Ramban. That's called the chochma, which is machayeh ba'aleh. But once again, I repeat, that doesn't help for the body. What we see here, yes, there's a concept of mafli. This is what the Ramos says, mafli lasos, that the neshama is miskasher in the guf through the ruchnis of the Michael, which means the kavod shamayim, which can be found there by doing what? By elevating and revealing the chochma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is mechaya and mahava, that Michael, and translating that and bringing that into be a chochma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is mechaya and mahava yourself, and using that koyach to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's called mafli lasos. Unbelievable that you can even find in this crazy world of food, not just in thought, but even in food, you have a justification for the soul to stay in the body. That's basically all this is based. Yisoidis are found in a mimer, in a book called Soid Yeshorim of Admarei Ishbitze. There's a sefer. It's the first mimer in Erev Yom Kippur. If you want to know, it's also found in another krach of Soid Yeshorim on Maimor and Pesach. It's mimer Nun Ches. You can look it up there if you want. So you understand when we talk about food, we're not talking, do I really care? Now let's go further. That's as far as why the neshama stays in the guf. But then you can actually think, but the body itself, what's that? That's pasha, you need protein, you need carbohydrates. That's what keeps you going. And the Teretz says, no, there's something else you have to understand. And that's loya alechem levada yichya adam kol moitzi pi Hashem yichya adam. The reason that food nurtures you, because Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that these type of foods, which ultimately do what it does to you, should be alive. The laws of science are basically nothing more than expressions of Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chosmasai. And therefore, God will choose that you won't. You'll be 40 days without food, drink without food on the mountain, and yet you'll be alive. Because God's just a God who says that you will live because of food, and your body will nurture with food. God can also say you'll be nurtured because I want you to be nurtured. That's the reason what the pasuk says, that Moshe was alive for 40 days on the mountain. This is the second study. So the neshama, I repeat, does what it does. But we can make the mistake that the guf lives because of science. We don't have no. Science is also Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're not alive because of the protein and the carbohydrates and whatever, the vitamin X, B, and D, whatever they are. You're alive because of Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mi shomer l'shem l'viyadlik, hu yomer l'chaim it's viyadlik, like Chanina B'daisa says. Why do you think oil burns? Because God wants it to burn. Well, if God wants vinegar to burn, it'll also burn. That's Reb Chanina ben Daisa told his daughter, Misha Amar Lashem and Yadlik, Uyomer Lachaimitz V'Yadlik. And it worked. You have to be a person which actually sees things that way, and it does work. That's not a ness. That's nothing more than a reflection of the world that you're in. If you live in the world of Misha Amar Lashem V'Yadlik, Yomer Lachaimitz V'Yadlik, that's where you are. In that world, yeah, Chaimitz is Dailik. When you live in a world that Shemin is Dailik and Chaimitz is not Dailik, and all of a sudden Chaimitz is Dailik, that's a ness. It really depends through which senses, through which eyes do you experience the world around you. This is the Yesod HaDvar. L'meila does something around. The Ratzon HaOlam, that God wants the world to exist, opens up the Midas HaChesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Paisach, who the Ratzon HaKodu is Paisach, Es Yadecha, Yad Yamin is Midas HaChesed. Umaspia L'Kol Chai, what does it satiate the world with? Not with food, but with Ratzon HaElyon, that they should live through food. Paisach Es Yadecha, what? The Ramal said, the Ratzon HaKodu is Paisach Yadecha means the Yad Yamin Midas HaChesed. Umaspia, and how do you satiate the world? Not with food, but with Ratzon. That's what you should be thinking. The morale, when you think that way 3 times a day, and you internalize that day, you ultimately are a ben olam haba. Yes, you are definitely living in another sphere of reality, and the more you think about it, you can contemplate it, the more you live that way, you see that way, you become a ben olam haba. You don't have to go through any pearly gates. You can be a ben olam haba here, as we mentioned before. Olam means the world, means the reality you perceive through your senses. Well, if you develop a sensitivity to that type of thinking, then you're living olam haba here. If you perceive the pshat is it's Ratzon HaElyon is mafil midas HaChesed, and what I'm living with is not lechem and basar, but Maitzi Pi Hashem, then you're ish olam haba. That's what this really is. So this goes back just to explain. Thus, when we are talking about davening, you're asking Moshe for so many things. This was just one dogma of when you ask, for example, yes, Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Hazoyis Komnei Sfas L'Teva. What are you asking for? Once you understand the Seder Ishtalshelus of Mezainis, etc., and that's what you're asking for, believe me, it's a different Baruch Aleinu. It's really the Ratzon HaKadum of a Kadosh Baruch, which ultimately expressed itself, yes, you're right, into apples and oranges, but this is nothing more than Kalim of Ratzon. The shirish of an apple lies wherever it lies, and there it lies Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that with this apple you'll be able to live. And within this apple, there will also be a reason for the neshama to stay in the guf. The apple is an unbelievable thing. And that's what you're asking. When you say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam b'orei p'retz, what are you saying? God, let me understand more and experience more of you, God, as the creator of apples. Next time you go to the market, you see apples in the basket over there, think, oh, this is the bria of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the kli for the ratzon, which keeps the neshama in the guf and the guf intact. Believe me, that's olam haba. And that's Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam b'orei p'retz. She'yir b'ha'akora, come down, as we described. Let me understand, therefore there be a shefa of you as Johnny Appleseed. If you even know who that was. It's a literary character. God, apple planter. I want to see that. And when you drink a glass of water, you say, God, I just don't want water. I want to see Shakol Niya B'Dvaroi, that this is nothing more than an expression of Dvar Hashem. That's what you just said. Let me understand more that this glass of Coca-Cola is an expression of Dvar Hashem. Literally, Kol Chai Rotzon. That's the tzura of tefillah. Every tefillah is basically an acknowledgement and a request to understand more. I want to understand more how health depends on you. And the laws of science are nothing more than an expression of your chokhmah and your ratzon. Because you are the rightful chobasim. What does that mean? What did we just learn what that means? You set up the world of science in an unbelievable way. That's how you understand the Chaim Simon Vav. Health is up to you, not because, you'll take care of the virus. No. I don't know what the pneumius of this virus is. I don't know what it is in the Olam Elyon. But ain't the shum suffix that something happened in Olam Elyon, that's why there's a virus. At the end of the day, something will change because that's where there won't be a virus. That's called believing in Hashem Yisrael, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is the tzura that we talk about tefillah when we ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We ask him for rain. You know what rain is? Now that you begin to understand, let me tell you what rain is. Everything in this world, all that ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in Daimim and Samech and Chai, needs rain. Live in Eretz Yisrael and understand. We don't exactly have running rivers. We have a leaking pipe called the Jordan River, okay? And what they call waterfalls here is like really funny. You go into the Golan, they saw a waterfall. It looks like a pipe broke. A waterfall is Victoria Falls. A small waterfall is Niagara Falls. Okay, what they call waterfalls here is yeah. You went to the Banyas, you saw something, a pipe leaked. Okay, we love this country so much. We have this little pond in the middle of the country. It's nothing more than a reservoir. Okay, at the best, it's a lake. It's a mini lake compared to Lake Michigan. It's a mud puddle. Okay, we call it the Kinneret, but we love this country so much. We don't call it a puddle. We don't call it a pond. We don't call it a lake. What do we call it? Yam Kinneret. We call it an ocean. How can you call that an ocean? The teretz is because we love it so much, so we see it big. They say, Har Tavor. You ever been to Har Tavor? It's a hill. There's like millions of them in Vermont. It's not Killington. You understand? You can't exactly do any mountain biking there. Okay, we glorify the geography of our homeland, which is okay. But the reality is that we have to understand I don't want to waste time. I want to stop here. That whatever we do, we have to understand we want to look for Shorish Hadvarim. So here I'm going to show you something. Rain. We need rain. We can't live without rain. Rain is perceived, if you look in the Midrashim and look even in Chazal, God describes, I'm going to have a reward relationship with you. You do mitzvahs, what's the first thing he says? You'll have rain. Rain is perceived as the archetypical medium which God gives himself to the world. Look, Vayim Shema Tishmu, V'nasati what? First of all, Gishmeichem. In Bechukoisai, the same thing. First of all, rain. Rain is perceived as chasadim without a tzura. There's no tzura to rain, water. You can do it. The tzura reflects the kalim that you put it in. Its reflection is, so to speak, a mashal of chachma and ratzon, which it depends what we do with it. So where's the shorish of rain? So I'm going to read to you a gra. Gra is found in Ader Selyo, in Yeshayahu. It's also printed in the Siddur Isha Yisrael of Rabbi Yitzchak Malchin, the Siddur Agra on Kriyas Shema. And here's what it says. V'nasatim ta'atzrem be'ita yaira u'malkosh hu nevua v'ruach HaKodesh. V'saftat gonecha siroshcha v'yitzarecha zot tegra hu chochma bina v'das. Esev b'sadcha zot tegra hu machal behemais vehem chayes hakodesh. Not exactly the kibbutz in Yavne. V'achalta zo achila v'savata zo shtia ve'hein alachos v'agados. K'mo shekatuv svar rotzen umolei birchas Hashem. Was steht in Gra? Steht in Gra that the pshat is if the shirish of Geshem and the shirish of these things lie in Olam Zelyonim, when a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to give rain, that means he's giving a certain expression of his chachma, which up there it means bringing Ruah and Ruach HaKodesh to the world. Elamai, the bitu achitzoni of that is Geshem. Chazal say, and Dora Mabel Roy. That was a door which was roy for Kabbalah's Torah, but only they messed it up, and because of that, instead of giving them chachlin, he gave them too much rain, and they drowned. The mabul was the chitzonius of that chachma and ruach hakodesh that they could have had. Now you understand when it says that gomches yireshke v'tzarecha. Yeah, we're going to have wheat. You know what you're going to get? This is the shorish of that is God giving Chochmah Bina V'das, which expresses it from Olam Hazeh in Dagon and Tirosh. Your animals are going to have food. In shorish, first of all, the Chayes HaKodesh have to be nurtured. In shorish, Chayes HaKodesh are nurtured. It's mishtalsh, and it comes out the end that the animals over there in Kibbutz Yavne have what to eat. So if we learned that everything here is like a little mushal of what's really happening, next time you see rain, understand what's happening here. Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, guys, you're roy for more chokhmah and ruach hakodesh and nevuah. It depends on the kalim you present. In the meantime, it's chitzonius is rain, which means a chef of a Kadosh Baruch Hu with the tzura depends on what kalim you have. It has no color. It has no shape. Depends what you do with it. That same matana, which can be geshem, which can end up being a mabul, could be a grig harikoyselechem bracha of chachman ruach hakodesh. That's what Chazal meant. Godel yom gesham and kiyim shenitna b'Torah. Godel yom gesham and kiyim shenivru b'shemayim v'oretz, because basically the rain is the nesina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the world. It's giving his chachma, as we said before, the bereshis b'chachma HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. I want you to understand, once you have an eye of a ben olam haba, you start seeing things that way, you experience another existence. Your davening becomes something totally different. Suddenly every word has like, wow, where's it going? And you get dizzy. You have to start learning it and settling and thinking about it. But this is called learning before davening. What do you think Hichen Nifkat Hashem Elokecha means? I mean, think, what am I about to say? What do those words really mean? What buttons am I about to press? I feel like a little child walking into an atomic reactor, and there's a lot of buttons there. Yingala, try to find out what you're about to do, because you may press the wrong one, or at least appreciate what you're about to do. That's called davening like with seichel. Okay, so this is the pshat when it says God. That's why the makar of tefillah is a korah makar b'tivasan shekshami. Now you know what it really means. Doesn't just mean rain for the world. It means a ribuy of chachma and ruach hakodesh k'mavur b'gra, which is far expressed also in Geshem, and that chachma and that ruach hakodesh, which is expressed in Geshem, is mechaya, the doimem, the tzomeach, and the medah and the chai. Ultimately, you take that and translate it into chachma of Torah, and you brought that back to its shirish. It's frightening what we do. We're like an unbelievable recycling machine, taking the total chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bringing it back there. That's our job. So your shulchan is a mizbeach. Start thinking about it. And when you say Birchas HaMazon, start thinking what you're saying. understand what's happened here. Okay, guys, it's enough. It's a good night. Take care. We'll continue next week. Tomorrow, regular learning. Yeah, right. We're going weiter. Kol tuv. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.